In this video, I'm going to go over a few things you can do to make the map. So I've got 3 layers here in a data frame showing the population of Massachusetts towns in each of 3 years. So right now in layout, or in data view, sorry, we can go in, inspect data pretty easily. First thing I'm going to do to make a map is go to the bottom left, click this little button, the pop-up says Layout View. That brings us to the kind of imagined page here. You can see our data frame, the features within it, and a little grid pattern. And now the grid pattern may or may not be on as a default for you. It's going to be helpful for us, and I'll show how to implement that later. So if we got 3 different layers that we want to differentiate towns using different colors here, so with a choropleth map, first thing we got to do is make sure the scale is such that we can actually see what's going on. So here, I'm just using the manual click and drag zoom in tool to get the features to kind of a little bit better size. We've got 3 of them, so I'm also going to try to position the data frame in such a way that we can fit 3 of them on this imagined page here. There we go. If we need a little extra room, we can have it on the side. So I got 1, but you know, if I'm in Arc, I can toggle between layers to show difference. But harder to do that, really impossible to do that in kind of a PDF or a printed map. So one thing that's nice to do in your maps is to have things standardized. So if we're going to show Massachusetts at 3 times, 1980, 1990, 2000, we're going to want the Massachusettses, the geometries in our map, to actually line up. So one way to do that, it doesn't matter what the map scale is, what the zoom level, what the kind of location of our features in the data frame is. If we just copy and paste, we can get our 3 data frames. And so each of those data frames is a copy of the other, so each has these 3 different layers in it. And we don't actually need all 3. So after we do that, we can go into the first one, remove, oops, I grouped it, remove the 1990 and 2000. We'll go into the second here, remove the 1980. And if you don't want to remove, you could just toggle it off. And then in the third, you can remove 1980 and 1990. So here we go. Now 3 different data frames, each with 1 layer. Same geometry here, Massachusetts towns, but a different variable being shown, and different with the same threshold values used. Now if you want to save some space on your map, you can maybe move them closer. That might look a little weird. So if you're really trying to squeeze, you might highlight them all, and you can disable the border. That gives you a little bit more room. Maybe we can inch them closer to one another. And if you want to do that in a standard way, just remember how many times you press the up or down button. So that, I think, is the easiest way to get 3 different data frames showing our data in a nice, aligned way. We might want to put a title here. We can insert that as a title or just as a text element. It's going to show up, you can barely see it, right in the center of the page with just the letters TEXT. So we say Mass towns by population in, or let's say population across 2 decades. It's kind of tiny now. Bring it to the top. Make it quite a bit bigger. There we go. And now ideally we want the title to be aligned too. Well, you'll forgive me the grammar here. Now we can align it with the boundary of the data frame using an automatic method. One is to just enable grids and snapping to grids and make use of the same placement. The other way is by right-clicking, or I'm initially clicking the title. Now I'm holding down Shift as I click a data frame. And now with those two selected, if I right-click, go to Align, I can align it left. Now that may or may not be what you want. If we disable the borders, it might not make sense. It might not look nice, is what I mean. You might want to actually align it to the edge of a feature, and in that case there isn't necessarily a good automatic way to do it. You might have to even disable snapping to grid if there isn't a grid location that allows you to align it. Now it just so happens there pretty much is. At this southwest corner of the state of Massachusetts, it's pretty much by one of those light gray dots, the grid. And so we can just make use of that. And then the other thing, if you don't want to align it to any kind of features or elements within your map, you can right-click the title and just, oh, sorry. You should be able to align it center. Here we go. There we go. Align it to the center. Now if we inserted some more text, map by Nick, maybe you want to put the source of the data. You might even put that at the bottom of the screen. But the map looks nicer if you align it. So if we click that little bit of text, and then with a shift click, click the title, align right. Oh, they jumped away over there. But we can still have them selected and move them back. And now they have a right alignment. It just looks a little bit nicer. That's alignment in Layout View right here. You might have a problem where in one of your data frames the data actually gets moved. And if you're lucky, if you're good, you can kind of manually move it back. If you need it to be very precise, you have two options, I think. The first option is to delete it, make a copy again of one of the ones that isn't messed up, and then put it back where it needs to be. If you can't do that, maybe the data's too big, it would take I don't know, an hour just to kind of work it around, or not even an hour, take half an hour, 20 minutes. There's a complicated way to do it with bookmarks. So we click on one of the data frames that has the data lined up as you want it to be. You can create a bookmark, doesn't matter what you call it, and then you can manage the bookmark. And it actually shows up as an option within this data frame right here. If you go to the one in which you made a mistake, you don't see that bookmark. But you can click Manage Bookmarks. You can look for it loading. Couldn't find anything. So where you created the bookmark, go to Manage Bookmarks. You can save this. Call it bmark, call it whatever you want, and close. And now, in the data frame that you want to fix, you can load that bookmark in, and then double-click it to restore the location and actually the scale of the data as you like it. So if you mess up with the scale, you can go back to that as well.